everyone, and panagdait sa tanan. And before we will having our discussion today, let me first introduce ourselves. By the way, I am Joanne Balendrez, together with my partner, Darlene Faith Balives. And today, we will going to discuss the last 6S in Peace Education Framework, which is the sensitivity. And for the aims of this sensitivity module, it will seek to develop the skills and attitudes of the students towards building peaceful communities through promoting and understanding the values of intercultural respect and solidarity and non discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, beliefs, and cultural backgrounds. So now let now proceed to the main topic, which is the challenging prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination. So, for the overview of this topic, we have individuals, groups, and sectors in our society are increasingly being confronted by prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination because they are looked on and perceived differently by other the majority on the basis of their ethnicity, culture, religion, sexual preferences, and socioeconomic status. So, what is prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination? Prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination is a type of violence act which can influence thought, feelings, and behavior. Prejudice, stereotype, and discrimination often comes from inequalities in society, ideas that learn about other people, groups, from family members, friends, and our media, and even not being open to different ideas and ways of living. Everyone has different beliefs, experience, abilities, appearances, and more. However, certain people and groups are more likely to experience prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination. So, in order to distinguish more between prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination, let's them know more. So the first one is prejudice, or also known as thoughts or emotional bias. Prejudice is a frame of mind or an attitude which prejudge a person or group without basis. So it implies that this prejudice is making a decision about a person or group of people without sufficient knowledge. Like, for example, we may shy away from people with a story of mental illness or physical disability because we are afraid that they may harm us. And whether you tell the truth or not, already experiencing it. Like in our case today, in the midst of this pandemic, if someone in your neighbor or relatives or even in your community who had a fever, cough and cold, di ba, i-avoid them because we are afraid that maybe he or she might have a COVID. And without knowing na wala di ay. And it's because that's what we have thought. Sometimes kasi the human mind is too advanced for what happening now. So that's why there is speculation. We think, we decide, we judge a person without sufficient knowledge. And that is prejudice. So, why do we need to know about prejudice? It's because it is a social issue that goes against our stand for equality. And it's something very real today. Not just today, but since then. So we have 7 types of prejudice to discuss. First is sexism. Sexism is a system of attitudes, actions, and institutional structures that subordinates women on the basis of their sex. So this sexism is primarily affect to the women and girls because based on their ideas, most often women are inferior than men because of their sex or gender. Like, for example, in our school, There is a student council election. We know that many schools have student council that meant to bridge the gap between the student body and administration. Student council are seen as the leaders of the grade, and most students aspire for these post years. School elections are held or they are nominated, an occurrence not difficult to pick up on in the probability of a boy being elected instead of a girl. Why are boys? Because for them, boys are seen as natural leaders who can be decisive and aggressive when needed. So that is sexism. There is a discrimination happen that based on gender and a belief that men are superior to women. So another types of prejudice is the heteros, heterosexism. Heterosexism is a negative attitude towards lesbian and gay men. In this type of prejudice, LGBT people are victims who continue to face bias, discrimination, and injustice in our classroom, workplace, media, streets, and digital places. Like, for example, I still remember when I was in high school, in our school, there was a teacher who really hated LGBTQ people. Maybe it was because of her religiosity, maybe because she keeps saying that according to the Bible, what God did was man and woman only. That's why she really hated LGBT so much. And as a straight adult, we should demonstrate acceptance of gender and sexuality diversity in many ways, like how we respond to students or anyone who use terms such as gay. And a derogatory fashion speaks volumes about who and what we value, and send the critical message that all are accepted in our classroom and school and even in our society. Equality is really matter. So the next is classism. Classism is a distancing from and perceiving the poor as the other. We know that people are born into different classes. There are rich, middle, and low class. For instance, a higher income parents are seen as better parents. However, lower income parents are seen as lacking parental skills. Social class is not a silent part of one's worldview. There is recognition of inequality of rich and poor, but no real conceptualization of how social systems may work to create inequality. Overall, there may be a belief in a myth of meritocracy and an acceptance personal and other people's unqualified privilege and entitlement. So the fourth one is linguicism. Linguicism is a negative attitudes members of dominant language groups holds against non-dominant language groups. Linguicism is a discrimination when targeted against the speaker of a language or accent. It often happens at school. Like in my past years, when I was in grade 10, I had a classmate that is not very good at English but likes to answer questions from the teachers. He is a kind and helpful person, but sometimes he is also bullied by our own classmates. It's because every time he speaks English, our classmates laugh at him because he is not very good at speaking that language. Even for instance, no, mga tao nila. If na kay makahalubilo di adto na person, which is taga Manila, then ikaw taga Mindanao, tas magkastoryahan mo, tas iyang accent is perfect. Then ikaw dili. Di ba sa ayon na-discriminate sa ang ato accent kay dili kay takahadasada sa ila. And nasa ni nga case. That's how linguicism is an unfair treatment of an individual based solely on his or her use of language. So the fifth one is ageism. It is a negative attitudes held against the young or the elderly. Ageism is called age discrimination. When someone treats you unfairly because of your age, for example, in a workplace, you are going to apply a job. then luckily, there is one company that hiring, but unfortunately, you're seeing a pattern of hiring that only younger employees only. Di ba? Nakaka-down at parang tinanggalan rin ng karapatan ng isang tao para makahanap ng trabaho. All employees should be treated equally. Even at this age, everyone has a right to work. So, the next type of prejudice is loxism. Prejudice against those who do not measure up to the standards of beauty. Loxism can also be called physical attractiveness discrimination. For some real example, Anne would like to join cheer dance, but she was weighed 300 pounds, and she terminated because her supervisor said people don't like buying from fat people. So in order Anne to join, she was told to join a gym and lose weight and improve her looks. So that is doxism, a discriminatory treatment of people who are considered physically unattractive. So the last is colorism. Colorism is someone believes one type of skin tone is superior or inferior to another within a racial group. For example, if a white or employer believes a black employee with a darkened skin tone is less capable than a black employer with lighter skin tone, that is colorism. So I think that's all our types of prejudice that we have. So now let's proceed to the stereotyping. Stereotyping are also known a feelings or cognitive bias. It is means having a set image or that group of people which is then used to represent that particular group. Stereotype is most frequently now employed to refer to an often unfair and untrue belief that many people have about all or things with a particular characteristic. For example, terrorist. As we seen in the picture, the terrorist is wearing black or nakabulukot, then bangason. It's because that's how people describe them. They have to come up with a story to represent that group or a person. So we have here another examples of stereotypes. All Americans have guns. Black people are the best athletes. Chinese people are always eat rice. So another example of stereotypes is stereotypes can occur within different ethnic groups, social classes, religious groups, and opposite sexes. Like here, lower class people are uneducated. No, sometimes nahimo sad itong diskriminasyon sapagkat ang turing or feeling ng mga nasa middle or upper class ay ang mga uneducated sila because of their situation, but not all. Another is Jewish people are good with money. No, sometimes makaingon sa daan ni, makakita lang tag one person nga nakasuot og gold, makaingon dayon ta og kwartahan guro ni siya, no? Then last is men are stronger than women. So stereotypes are mental shortcuts that we take that help us quickly understand a group or make assumption about a group, and it's important to be aware of them because sometimes they're wrong. Many times they're wrong. The problem with stereotype is once we have a tendency to psychologically confirm our stereotypes, so we have that we call confirmatory bias. So sometimes we create stereotypes about groups because they're just simply not even in the picture, so we have to come up with a story. Sometimes the story are created because caricatures or distorted images of people are portrayed that happens a lot. So it's important to see our stereotypes and those shortcuts we take so that we can question them and be aware of how they may trap our thinking about other groups or another thing. Sometimes people say, oh, well, that's a good stereotype. But any stereotype that limits our understanding or ability to see somebody and their full humanity is not good. Stereotypes, when applied generally without thinking and checking them out, or are problematic whether the content is good or bad. So the next is discrimination. Dar?
Yes. Okay. Our next topic is all about discrimination. I know all of us are familiar of what is discrimination. So according to this definition, it is an action towards individuals or groups based on prejudice, usually not based on facts. So ito po ang hindi patas na pagtrato ng isang tao na nakabatay sa iba't ibang katangian. And that we will be discussed later. So as we can see in the picture, the poster says no gay rights. It tells us as a gender discrimination. The old man being discriminated through his gender. People may be discriminated against because of their age, disability, ethnicity, origin, political belief, race, religion, sex or gender, sexual orientation, language, and culture. So these are the some of the reason why people are being discriminated. Okay, social class. Everybody can be successful. Let's just put this in our mind and heart. Prejudice that members of an one race are superior to members or discriminatory or abusive behavior towards members of another race. Structured inequalities between the different groups of people. So let's say for example, sa school, di ba naadyo tayo mga different social classes. Tas naadyo tayo makita nga mga dato and if ever gusto gali ta makig-friend nila, not just kay dato sila para malibre ta nila. Not. Kay gusto nato sila mahimong friend. Pero murag dili ta nila i-accept, it is because kanang maybe ilang pagtanaw sa to is porta or maybe pagtanaw nila is dili ta nila ka level. So dira sa maka-feel pud ta nga um, ma-feel po nato nga discriminate ta. So that is social class nga example. Next, religion. We are equal and we can choose our religion, of course. We have our freedom to choose our religion. It is the treatment of a person or a group by the different religious customs belief of each person. So religious discrimination, it is an unequal treatment of an individual or groups based on their belief. Because in our different religion or sect or secta, we have our own costumes and the process or the way we worship. So naaman jud tay sa atong tagsa-tagsa ka mga religion or sekta, nagyud tay mga different nga paagi sa ato ang pag-worship. So as we can see in the picture, it is the different faith leaders who have different rules. So kanang mga tao dira nga atong makita sa picture, mga faith leaders na sila. Then napo na sila yung mga different nga mga rules. So makaingon ta nga lahi-lahi jud. Another example in Catholic, many sects or religion discriminate us because sa mga labi na sa Katoliko jud kay lagi daw mangurusta or nganong nagasuota og santos. But for them to know, it's just a veneration. We only give them respect sa mga santos. Dili silang ato adyong giampuan, kung dili ang Ginoo lang. So for them to know, para makabalusab sila, it's only veneration. Another, in Muslim, di ba, the way they worship is kanang magtuwad sila inana. So dira na tupod dira sab naka-experience sab ko ging ana na ko mga friend nga Muslim sa ako ang senior high. So ang uban kay murag i-discriminate or ngano man sila kuan ngano man na sila nga mag-ampong ing ana man na. So ang Muslim nga makadungog so malain sab sila, maka-feel pud sila og kanang kalain. So in order to have peace, let's just focus to ours. So para makakuan ta, para walay conflict and walay away or dili ta maka-discriminate, ato lang i-focus kung unsay naa sa ato i-focus nato kung asa ang atong gituhuan. Next is age. It is a discrimination to people who are old or young. Age are sometimes discriminated against by his or her intellect that person has. So, each one of us has different intellect capacity, right? So, naagi tayo tagsa-tagsang intellect capacity. So, as we can see in the example, the young girl is being hired while the old man are not hired. It may be because gusto sa employer nga ang batanon kaysa sa tiguang. Kaya ang batanon mas energetic pa kaysa sa tiguang. So another, dako na kay ka og edad, pero ang imong kakuyog or kadula is mga bata. So dira nato or dira mahitabo ang usa ka discrimination. Like maingnan ka, unsa man na siya oy dako na kayo og edad, mga bata pa iya ang mga kadula. Dakan kung ah, madunggan nga ing-ani nga mga panghitabo. So, so dapat para sa ato ang tagsa-tagsa ka kaugalingon, let's respect each other. Kay maybe wala pa na-develop ang ilaang intellect capacity or unsa ang ilaang nasa ilang hunahuna, so dapat irespeto nato sila para sa dili sila masakitan. Let's know kung unsa po'y feeling kung kita masakitan. Ato pong hunahunahon kung unsa kano kung sa ato apod ka na gibuhat. So inana. Next is national origin. National origin discrimination means treating someone less favorably because he or she comes from a particular place, okay? Nationality, language, and culture. We are different by equal. Okay. So this discrimination happened, let's say for example, there are certain group of people who came for a particular place. Then, nabaguhan ta sa ilang culture nga gi-follow or sa ilaang mga inistoryahan. Then, dira usahay may tabo nga naay discrimination. Like, manaway ta sa ilaha, ano man na ing ana man na sila, ano ing ana man na ilang inistoryahan. So, dira pod, ma-feel, dira sab, mahitabo ang usa ka discrimination. Next, skin color. God chose the variety among his children. Discrimination treatment based on skin color also may be attributed to ethnic heritage and race rather. So let's say for example, Igorot people or the Black American people, they are the prone of skin color discrimination, right? So, sila jud ang kasagara nga ma-discriminate kay tungod man sab sa ilaang color. Like, makadungog ta nga, ituma pod ana niya, oy, ngipon lang ang kaputi. So, in ana nga discrimination, ang atong halos madunggan. So, then, naasab tay like, nga ako'y one of my friends sa kuan sige nga namo nga barangay, usahay magmahay-mahay siya sa iyang kaugalingon like moingon dayon siya nganong ing-ani man akong color pod. And actually, he is iyang father is Nigerian. So like ningon siya ngano mang uban puti nganong ako dili. So in-ana bitaw nga mga discrimination kuan pud ta ba nga kaning bisan dili ta pareha og color dapat respeto lang jud sa usag usa para ma-acquire nato ang peace. So ato sab nga hunahunahon sa makadaghan kung nakapasakit ba ta sa lain o wala. Next is language. Linguistic discrimination, also called linguicism and linguicism. It is the unfair treatment which is based on the use of language and characteristic of speech, including his first language, accent, perceived size of vocabulary, whether the speaker uses complex and varied words, modality, and syntax. So, for me, makarelate jud ko aning language discrimination because I am a Subanen. Actually, Subanen ko. I cannot deny the fact that we are experienced of being discriminated or bullied because the way we speak and the language we use because dili po ni siya familiar labi na sa mga kabisayaan nga mga lugar. One of the example of for this is dili lang nako i-tell kung unsa siya nga lugar but duo lang gid siya sa amo nga lugar. Mostly sa ilang barangay is Subanen. Then gamay lang jud ang mga Visayan people. So the way sila nga makig-istorya labi na sa mga Bisaya, magbinisaya jud sila. They are trying hard, try jud nila ilang best para sa makasabot ang mga Bisaya. Lisod po magsinubanon siya din ang iyaang kaistorya mora gihapon walay ulos nga kung magsinubanon dili kasabot. So inana nga situation. So the language they use is Bisaya jud, but kani the tone or ang tono sa ilaa is Sinubano. Diri jud nahitabo ang usa ka discrimination. Like maingnan bitaw mi nga nanapod ang taga kuanon abot na pod like and nanapod sila mga lahi og inistoryahan. So kami nga mga subanen masakitan sab ni and kanang masakitan mi then murag ma-down ka sa imong kaugalingon kay gibuhat man sab na nimo unta ang imong best nga iistorya ang binisaya but magamit jud nimo ang tono sa first language nga gitudlo nato sa amo ang parents. So inana bitaw nga panghitabo. That is one of the example of language discrimination. Okay. Discrimination is a crime. Anong discriminate crime man na siya? It is a crime. Dili ka makaingon nga it is a crime dili kay masakitan ta physically kay ano na masamad ta or sa may anang mga masakitan ka nga physical but kay but emotionally ma-feel jud nimo unsa ka sakit kung ikaw i-discriminate, right? I don't know if kita bang tanan naka-experience aning discrimination but me naka-experience jud ko ani since I am in elementary then karon murag okay na kay murag naka kuan na pud ka sa imong self confidence. So to this definition, a society where discrimination is allowed or tolerated, it is a society where people are deprived from freely exercising their full potential for themselves and for society. The principles of equality and non-discrimination are laid down in the UDHR. All humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So, let us always remember and let us always put this in our hearts and mind that as we born this in this world, we are born free. So we are free to choose, free to walk, and free to hear, free to tanan, free jud ta with equal dignity and rights. So naatay mga karapatan. Dili lang ta nga magpa-discriminate lang jud ana nga magpaubaya na lang jud ta magpalabi og kaubos kay ngano if manggod kung magpalabi ka sa pagkaubos dira sab tamak-tamakan pud ka. So dapat know your rights as a person, as a human being. Everyone is entitled to all human rights and freedoms without distinction of any kind. Again, kitang tanan. We have all the rights and freedom. Naatay kalayaan to choose tanan. So this let's just always remember this one nga aron sab atong always mahinumduman sa atoa. Okay.
Challenges like prejudice create discrimination and abuse, undermines mental and health, and leads to oppression. So The therapy can help a person to overcome these challenges. And these challenges is peace education. Because through peace education, it concerns and promotes positive relations through these challenges. Accordingly, peace education could be defined as interdisciplinary area of education whose goal is institutionalized and non-institutionalized teaching about peace and for peace. It aims is to prevent a conflict in advance or rather to educate individuals and a society for a peaceful existence on the basis of nonviolence, tolerance, equality, respect for differences, and social justice. So according to Castro and Galas 2008, the peace education as an approach to understand other culture or ethnic groups and to appreciate diversity is imperative in a society where hatred for differences has been a way to justify violence. Through cooperative learning approaches, students can recognize the ill effects of discrimination, develop respect, and appreciate cultural diversity and promote inclusiveness. So I think that's all for our discussion today. Hoping you will learn a lot and thank you for your time.